I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Today, we are going to review the newest album from Suede, Bloodsports. This is the first Suede album in 11 years. The last one came out in 2002. Now, I am not huge into Suede. However, Tom is our in-house Brit-rock / pop expert. He knows everything about Brit-pop, and not everything, but he knows a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so, thanks for raising the expectations.
Yeah, there you go. Tom, what do you know about Suede? How does this album, play into their sound? And
well, they were from the early 90s, part of that Britpop scene, as you mentioned. And to be perfectly honest, when it comes to the Britpop scene, this is probably one of the bands I've listened to the least.
Yeah.
I still enjoy them whenever I listen to them, but they've just never quite gripped me. Now, when it comes to their sound, I would say, first off, that the Britpop and rock movement of the 90s was hugely influenced by the post-punk movement that's kind of started in the late 70s and moved throughout the 80s with a lot of bands like the Smiths, which I hear hugely in Suede's sound.
I hear The Cure all over
the place. Cure, definitely. But I would say that Suede rides that line a lot more than most bands do. I mean, you listen to like Blur and Oasis, and I think that while you hear the influences, they're pretty far off from the post-punk bands. Suede is a lot closer to that. It's a lot closer to home. They kind of toe the line between the two genres. Like you said, I get a lot of The Cure, I get a lot of Smiths, but kind of then moving into the 90s, I got a huge Placebo vibe from these guys, which is a band that I know you and I really like. You don't hear about them too much, but they're a good band. If you like Suede, definitely go check out Placebo. Sorry, go ahead.
One thing I noticed, just jumping into this sound, they were not scared to rock out on this album.
No.
And that was one thing. The first thing I noticed was, wow, it almost sounds like this is Rush influence, which I would have never guessed that Suede, in an album that came out in 2013, would be influenced by Rush, and that would be a clearly identifiable. Now, Tom, you didn't come up with that, but I know that your wife did.
She did. I was listening to this with her, and that was the first thing she said, and I'm like, God damn it, Jake said that too. How did I not pick up on this?
They're only like your favorite band.
Yeah, I know.
Rush and Geddy Lee's vocals kind of sound a lot like the vocalist in Suede, and I feel like that kind of gives this an edge. And to be honest with you, this album, I was initially turned on by the fact that it wasn't afraid to rock out, that there was a lot of guitars, driving bass, really just flamboyant, aggressive sound. I liked all these features. However, when we get down to some of the later tracks, you see a little bit of a change in sound too. You see a bit more mood and atmosphere being added, which was nice. It was a nice change.
The last half of the album has a lot more of the lower dynamics.
Absolutely.
Especially in tracks 7 and 8. Sometimes I feel I'll float away and What Are You Not Telling Me? And I mean, the first half is pretty much just rock song after rock song. Yeah. And I think for the most part they're good. There are a couple weaker ones in there for me, but then once you get to those last like 4 songs, it goes a little more sentimental.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, for the most part, it's the vocals that catch your ear first. I feel like the vocalist does such a good job selling this sound. But then there's a ton of just like arena guitars and just really reverbed out, just guitars that could just fill a large venue. And then your driving bass line and lots of string-filled synths. That's what I've noticed. And that kind of got to me. The more I dug apart at the sound and pulled the instruments apart, the thing that I found that I was liking the most was the vocals and the guitar work. And so naturally I was gravitating towards the songs that had more intricate guitar work on it. There's a lot of songs on here that follow a very simple formula and very simple structure, where it's just verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. And if you guys have watched Velocities music in the past, you will know that I absolutely cannot stand.
Oh, you don't love that?
I can't. Justin Bieber may love it. I do not happen to love it. Now, personally, I feel like it gets a bit overused on the front half of the album. I feel like the second half, the songs are a bit more complicated, so you don't get that quite as much, especially with track 8 kind of breaking it up. But really, I feel like they were relying way too much on that structure, and not when that structure's in place, you have to have something else that's bringing to the table, that's bringing your sound and making it interesting, so that it's not predictable. And I don't feel like that they truly achieved that. I feel like too many songs in the first 7 tracks sound too similar to really say, okay, these weren't being on anything other than a compilation.
And I totally agree with you. I think that this is a classic case of an album where the sum is weaker, or the album's weaker than the sum of its parts.
I totally agree.
Because when you put them all together, they kind of dilute each other.
Yeah, but if you were just to listen to like a couple of these songs, you'll be impressed with
exactly.
them.
I don't think that there's a terrible song on here. There's some clear highlights and some weaker ones, but what really makes an album come down a notch is when the weaker tracks are accomplished elsewhere only better. I mean, I almost feel like you can have weaker tracks as long as they're doing something different.
Yeah.
If they're like little in-between tracks, maybe they're shorter, maybe they just bring a little flair to an album and some variety. But when you just have, okay, these two songs are basically the same style, sound very similar, but this one's just way better than the other one, then how do you justify keeping the other one around?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's not like some albums where you have like some really key tracks that are awesome and then you have some just plain bad tracks that you would throw out. That's filler. This isn't filler.
Yeah.
It's just the range is a little bit closer and it just kind of makes, it dilutes the sound. It dilutes the power and impact that the better songs have.
Yeah.
And that's just an unfortunate downside to it. Now, I still think this is a decent album.
Yeah, now that being said, while I do agree with you, I just found myself liking this one a little more simply.
More your style.
Well, it is more my style, but also just because I did like every track. While there are some ones that are clearly better than the others, there are some that just kind of restate what another song has done. I still like them individually. So I found this to be an enjoyable listen, even if it didn't blow me away.
Right. I completely agree. Now, I just am a little bit more south on the scale than you. I'm going 67 on this one.
I'm going 74.
Cool. What did you guys think? Did you listen to Bloodsports? Did you like it? Did you find it too formulaic, or did that bother you? And what do you think about this band coming back after an 11-year just break from music? Let us know at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and let us know what albums from 2013 you'd like to see us review. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.